You're listening to Gray, Jordan, and Alexis, and today we're going to be discussing how American pop music has shifted the way that we consume music in general.
So to start the history of pop music, you have to start with the phonograph, which is really what changed the consumption of music forever. Thomas Edison in 1877 invented the phonograph, and it really allowed people to listen to things in much higher masses than before. Songs and monologues were much more easily accessible than before.
Right, and I think that a quote that kind of defines what you were talking about is from Mark Katz, who is a professor at UNC Chapel Hill, and he said the 3-minute pop song is basically an invention of the phonograph, which I think kind of describes how the phonograph changed pop music and how because the process of recording music was so tedious and like the quality was so bad, I think that the phonograph kind of helped progress music.
Right. In the Starr and Waterman reading, they discussed how music has changed drastically because of technology, which relates to the phonograph changing the culture too. They touched on how now, with all our access to technology, anyone can just record themselves. They hit on record companies and how popular music is usually pumped through the same major record companies because they know what's going to sell.
Right, and in addition to those things, Starr and Waterman talked about the necessity to dissect the components of popular music and also how very real stereotypes are in that music.
Like, such as?
Like, African American men typically are being portrayed as gangsters in pop culture.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that with these stereotypes in genre, we also have to discuss the labels that also exist. And in Frith's reading, he talks about labels, like the music labels again, and he talks about how genre can be perpetuated by these labels, but also how genre and the perception of what is popular throughout time can change based on these same labels. So, in this reading again, Frith also states that there are 5 set rules to genre. He says that formal and technical rules are one, the next is semiotic rules, then behavioral rules, social and ideological rules, and then commercial and juridical rules.
Going back to current times and how genre and the perception of popular music has been changed by labels, I think it's important to note the difference of what made music popular previously compared to modern times.
Right, like in the Complex article, it discussed how much more important streaming is in the digital age in determining what's number one in the charts and like what people are really listening to.
Exactly. And how things like memes on social media, especially when Vine was a thing, could cause a song to go viral in 2017.
Okay, but going along with memes, I think it's important to note the Spin article and how the founder of the magazine, Bob Guccione Jr., believed that the quality of music has gone down because music nowadays is made to be so commercialized and is basically produced just to sell.
Right.
But he also said that he thinks the music is headed in a better direction because because of the same technological advances that are happening.
Right, and I think by that he means that because the music is actually in the hands of the artists instead of in the hands of the labels now because of things like SoundCloud and stuff like that.
And while it's great to see so many different artists having a say in what becomes popular, I think it's important to note how women are still generally excluded from this popular narrative.
Yeah, definitely. But can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, from this New York Times article from October, it talked about how women are still being held back in the music industry in 2017. The author, Wesley Morris, talked about how he made a point to use a chunk of his summer to listen to 150 albums by women because he was noticing in public spaces, such as restaurants and bookstores, that he generally only hears predominant male artists like Elvis Costello and Radiohead.
And so, what did he find in that article?
He said that some of this music by women was so empowering and just as good, if not better, than music by men, so he questioned why it wasn't as popular or why women aren't typically considered greats as easily as men are. He described the experience as very overwhelming.
That's awesome.
I think that's all we have today, but thanks for tuning in.